going to want to include that in your HTML. So in the dist folder, let's create our index.html, and we'll just put a boilerplate here, and let's say Webpack Tailwind Starter, and then we're going to add a script tag down here. So script source, and we're going to point to that bundle.js file. And for now, we'll just have an h1 in here. I'm going to give it a Tailwind class of 5XL, even though we don't have Tailwind set up yet. So now I could just open this with live server, or I could just open it with the file system. For now, it doesn't really matter. And we should see, if we look at the console, we should see hello world, because we're including the bundle.js, which is being built or compiled from this index.js. Now, if I want to change something, like let's say I want to say, I don't know, hello Brad, if I save that and I reload this, it's not going to say hello Brad because we need to recompile it. We would have to do npm run build again. Okay, and now you'll see down here it says hello Brad. So in order to not have to do that, we can set up the Webpack dev server. So we already have it installed right here, Webpack dev server. So now we can just create a separate script, and we'll call this dev so that we can do npm run dev, and it's going to call Webpack serve. All right, now in our config file, there's a couple more things I want to add. If we look at the gist, we can close this stuff up. But if we look at the gist here, there's a dev server object, which I'm just going to grab, and we'll put it right under the output. Whoops, forgot the D. And basically what this is telling it to do, this static object, is pointing to the directory that we want to serve, which is going to be our dist, our index.html, port 3000. Open true will make it so that it'll just open automatically when you run it. Hot reloading will just watch it so that when you make changes, it updates automatically. And then we can also compress it and use this history API fallback, which doesn't really matter to us right now. But let's go ahead and save that. And now we should be able to run npm run dev, and it should open up our localhost 3000. And if we check the console here, it has some other stuff just to let us know, hot module is enabled, but it says hello Brad. Now if I come back to my index.js, because you're never going to want to touch the bundle.js, that gets built by Webpack. But now let's change this back to world and save, and now this is going to reload, and now hello world. Okay, so we're able to continue on with development. Now we still don't have Tailwind enabled, so what we're going to do now is stop the server for a minute, and we need to have a Tailwind config, just like we did with the starter. We need to do npx Tailwind and Tailwind CSS and init, and that's going to give us this Tailwind config. So the same thing we saw before, except before we only watched the root. Now we want to watch in the dist folder. So that goes in here. We want to do /dist, and let's say /, and then, why is Copilot? Let me just deactivate that. Okay, actually we should watch for HTML and JavaScript, so we'll just do that. So once we add that, now we have to, like I said, add Tailwind as a post-CSS plugin. All right, so we're going to go down here into the root, and let's create a post-css.config.js. And if we look at our gist, I know I'm skipping around this file a bit, but if we look down here, this is what we want to add. So I'm just going to copy it and then just show you that we're including, or we're bringing in Tailwind, and then we're simply setting it as a post-CSS plugin, in addition to post-CSS preset env, which what this does is it converts modern CSS into something the browser can understand, and it also checks for any polyfills or anything that we need. But there's a ton of plugins you can use for PostCSS. I showed you on the website. You could just install them and add them here if you want to use them. But we're just going to set Tailwind up. Now there's one more step we need to do, and that, or a couple actually, but we need to add the module here, or I should say the loader. So this is going to load the style loader, the CSS loader, and the PostCSS loader. And that goes in a module object in your config. So let's grab this and paste that in. So what this is doing, when you set up a loader, you create a rules array and then an object with this test. So what this is going to do is just look for any file that ends with .css, and then it's going to use these loaders, style, CSS, and PostCSS, and it's looking in the source folder. So let's save that, and now we're going to create in our source folder a file called style.css, and then we just want to add our 3 Tailwind directives to it, just like we did to our input CSS in the other one. In fact, you could call this input CSS if you want, because all we're doing is bringing it into our main entry point here. So we can say import, and we want to bring in style or /style.css. All right, so now if we come down here and we run npm run dev, which will run our server, we should see our hello world, and we should see it in a different font now and much bigger. The margins removed because now it's using Tailwind. All right, so I know that that's quite a process, but remember, this is an environment, so you don't have to do this. You only do it once, and then you just copy it and create your whatever application you're going to create. And you can now install node modules. Like you could install something like Axios, and then you could import Axios from Axios, and you could use it and build something, and it's going to get compiled into this bundle.js, and then you can use that functionality, use that code in the browser. But that's it, guys. I figured that this would be a nice little addition to the course, so let's get on to the next video.